Me being the founder of Save the Women International right now, I'm dealing with a lot of girls right now that are working in the strip clubs that are run by the Hells Angels, that are working for brothels right now that are run by many other criminal organizations, the mobs, Asian gangs, UN gangs, and so forth, Hells Angels. And if these women don't sleep with certain gang members that they don't want to, they get taken in the back room, they get gang raped, they get beat. And I'm dealing with women right now that are getting gang raped and beaten by the criminal organization members in these brothels. So what's going to happen now is it's just going to legitimize the business for these criminal organizations to do money laundering.
Today's ruling, and surely it came as no surprise, do you really believe the Supreme Court is about not being intrusive, not interfering in the legal process? They want to shape policy. They don't want to reflect public opinion. They want to shape public opinion. I know these people. I've been at parties with members of the Supreme Court. You doubt their radical liberalism, the way they detest what they think is a conservative, faith-based status quo. No surprise at all. What she was saying there was nothing's going to change. Legalize or whatever, make it more legitimate. You think suddenly the big money guys, the gangs will disappear? How naive can you be? Natasha Fall was a former prostitute, founder of Sex Trade 101. She joins us now. It's a real pleasure. When I say you describe yourself as being prostituted. You were forced into prostitution?
Actually, I entered as a child, and so I'm sure anyone can agree children don't enter by choice, even if they believe that that's a decision that they are making. The average age being 13 to 16 years old, that people enter this so-called industry. I was recruited by friends, which is very common, people in prostitution. They're introduced by friends, family members, and we hear these groups of women who are advocating that they would support their children in prostitution and teach them how to be safer in it. And it's quite shameful considering, most of us entered as children.
No, what became obvious today was the people being interviewed are all of one political stripe. It wasn't actually working prostitutes. It was former prostitutes, apparently, who have become radicalized, left-wing lawyers, some very, very far-left semi-academics who have a whole stream of opinions that are very eccentric. I suppose we can't really comment on the general view of people who are working in prostitution. But if we look at the European model, where if it has been legalized, there's still an illegal alternative. There are all sorts of women who say, I don't want to pay taxation. I don't want to be checked out by a doctor. I want to do what I want to do. And then, of course, crime moves in.
Certainly, you just touched on a few things. One, we look at Amsterdam where women are being, tested for HIV and STD. What about the Johns? What about the guys who are bringing the disease to the women in these booths? How are the women protected? Isn't this about protection of women? Where's their protection in Amsterdam from STDs? Alan Young recently was interviewed, and he said that criminals are less likely to move up this business ladder if...
Is this the lawyer who represented?
Yes, yes. If we wipe out these laws, that, criminals are less likely to move up that ladder. And I just can't even believe that he said that. Like, are you serious? The guys who are operating these massage parlors and these escort agencies, and like Tanya said, in these strip clubs, are from organized crime groups. Yeah. The man who lived off my avails for 7.5 years owns a stag company. He went and got a business license. What is it, $85, $100 to get a business license? This is a convicted pimp. This is a man who did 4.5 years for living off the avails of 2 sisters, who is now, now he's an honest businessman because he owns a business license?
Well, they said today that now they can have security to protect them and it'll be legal. Who do they think is going to provide the security? It'll be muscle hired by organized crime. Organized criminals are not stupid. It's like, oh, there's been a law. Okay, we're out of here. They'll adapt to find another way to make sure that vulnerable women, and you are vulnerable when you become a prostitute,
that's right,
are once again exploited.
Yeah, it's easier for them. The laws are now going to work on their benefit. That's what these guys say. They sell you on being their manager, being a bodyguard, being your friend, and having your best interests at heart. How is somebody who is involved in prostitution, who most have never had a healthy comparison outside of the sex trade, able to differentiate the difference between a good manager and a bad manager? I mean, it's not going to happen. You can't regulate this. There's no way to regulate violence. We're not talking about regulating incest. We're not talking about regulating domestic violence. These are all elements that contribute to prostitution. This is why prostitution exists, is because of these elements.
It'll always exist. We have to be practical. We know that, but we want to reduce as much as possible. Seems to me this won't reduce in any way. If anything, it will enable and encourage.
Yeah, it's only going to expand the industry, by wiping out the very laws that protect victims. Those laws are in place to protect victims. Wiping out the living off the avails provision. Not everybody has been procured into prostitution by a pimp. Not everyone has been trafficked by a pimp. I know many, many women who have entered prostitution, perhaps introduced by another pimp or groomed by girlfriends, however it happened, who were already involved. So they weren't procured. And I have friends who live with their pimps, have children with their pimps. They're not trafficked. That wouldn't stand in court, wouldn't even go to pre-trial, a human trafficking case with a woman who's been impregnated and lives with her trafficker, right? It's just, so, in the original court, in the lower courts, Judge Himmel said that, that human trafficking and prostitution don't interconnect. The sex trade industry thrives off of these guys.
Really? That was said?
That was actually said in
I know judges are naive, but that is breathtaking.
It is, and it's very disturbing. I mean, if you look at the evidence, and you look at the evidence that was submitted by survivors and overcomers, and even people who are still involved in prostitution who are against this decision,
I'm not sure. I mean, it's a personal question. We've had a couple of, or two or three former prostitutes, even one who's active, who said they would have no problem if their daughter wanted to be a prostitute. They would encourage them. Can you empathize with that? I mean, that to me sounds obscene.
Isn't it disgusting? I've heard this over and over again by these pro-prostitution groups, out there, doing speaking engagements and debates at the universities. I hear this quite often. In fact, there's provincial and federal money that has funded workshops where they advocate that children who are prostituted should be referred to as child sex workers to reduce the stigma that they face by their peers.
You have shown more eloquence and common sense and intelligence than all of those idiot caricatures they've put on TV put together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.